ChatGPT does it for you. You get like a 50-page article one night before the exam.
Yep.
Good keywords.
That's so funny. I've been in that position.
No way.
I myself never thought that I would be studying at Harvard. Like if you had met me 2 years ago, I would think that's crazy that I'm going to be a student at Harvard. So
Very good thing. That was very insightful.
And it's actually, I will also congratulate the management.
Yeah.
It actually allows them to do that. You know,
Correct.
because every student, even us in here, we came as medical doctors, but deep down, if you ask everybody, they'll be like, I want to be a cardiologist, I want to be a neurosurgeon, I want to be an IPH person.
med school is about learning new tech for forgetting it 5-6 times. So broadly, my research here at Moshi is focused on cardiovascular disease. So and specifically myocardial infarction, so heart attack. So in the US, we have all these resources available to treat.
Hey everyone, welcome back to the TAMSA KCMC SCOSA podcast. I'm Ali Fazal.
And I'm Hassan Jairuddin.
Today we are here with our very own Faraan Rahim, and he's, over to him, allow him to introduce himself.
Yeah, sure. No, thank you guys so much for having me on the pod. My name is Faraan. I'm a medical student at Harvard Medical School, and I also do global health research here in Tanzania. So I'm currently here for a couple of months continuing projects here at KCMC.
And that's so nice.
It's
That's
an honor to have you here. Yeah,
Sure. No, thank you for having me.
all right. Looks like you got a competition in English speaking.
Well, my levels were long before. His were probably way before that.
Exactly.
Okay, so your journey is quite interesting.
Sure.
Like we
yeah.
say to every guest, but this time we went 100% in it. Like
Yeah.
this is like you can open a map and you can go play darts on it, and maybe
No,
we'll
I appreciate
almost hit it.
I think I would be quite accurate.
So
yeah.
all right.
Exactly.
So tell us, how did you, let's start with your origin story. How did you think of going into medicine?
Sure. Yeah. So I grew up in a small town right outside of Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, which is in kind of like northeastern United States. And I think that one of the things that really got me interested in medicine, I think I had some exposure early on because my dad's a doctor. My dad's a gastroenterologist. So that probably got me thinking about medicine early on. But then beyond that, I spent pretty early on in high school, I worked in an ambulance as an EMT, an emergency medical technician, where you do some like basic sorts of like first aid sorts of things, like if a patient had difficulty breathing, you provide them oxygen, you learn CPR. I think that's kind of like how I got exposure to medicine. And then beyond that, just started to continue developing that sort of passion through EMS, through emergency medicine. I was part of my university's EMS squad, and so that's really where I developed my passion for direct clinical care.
Looks like genetic.
A genetic
You could
link
say that,
to
yeah. I mean, it is in the blood.
Yeah, I mean, his
so-
motivation came from his
That's
genetics.
right.
I mean, there was some. What was that thing that happens in Huntington's disease where your son enhances? What's that thing called?
What?
Like
Tremor?
No. Like anticipation. Is that
Yeah.
what it's
Yeah.
called?
Okay.
Anticipation. So there was some anticipation because I think he went further. He's also a researcher. He didn't just stop at.
It's not like a motivation, it's like it's a target. Like,
It's-
if my father did this, I need to do more.
I think naturally you get that kind of like influence from your parents, right?
Yeah. Like him, he opened his own business just to prove his father.
To his father that you can be a businessman. That's hilarious.
Yeah. He became the prime minister.
Although my father was never in politics.
Exactly. So
The only politics which he does is leading my family.
Okay.
So you
Which
have to
itself
show
is
him
its own
like
kind of political
I can do an
situation.
entire university. That was the inspiration, perhaps. Perhaps not. I'm not saying it in his words. All right, let's move on. So when you say the H word, like Harvard, right?
Sure.
Like
I thought Hassan first.
And we call it the H bomb. Not the H word, the H bomb.
Yes.
Harvard.
Yes, the
Yeah.
H bomb.
It
It
leads
deserves
in
more
a
like
section,
it.
the H
It deserves to
bomb,
be called a
The
bomb.
H bomb.
Yeah, it's a
It's
bomb.
It's a bunch of extra that one. Okay, so when you say the H bomb,
Yeah.
you give it to someone like
That's
Harvard,
right.
like when you think, I'd say the pinnacle of education, I'd say the H bomb.
Hmm.
So tell us, how is life at Harvard?
Well, it's interesting. First, let me just back up and say that I myself never thought that I would be studying at Harvard. Like, if you had met me 2 years ago, I would think that's crazy that I'm going to be a student at Harvard. So it's just interesting, right? Because that entire perception of H-bomb, like it existed for me as well, for anyone, right? But then it's interesting now to actually be like a full year in to kind of like my studies at Harvard, where you kind of, once you're in that bubble, you don't think about it quite as much that it's the H-bomb, right? But in terms of what it's like, I mean, I would imagine it wouldn't be much different from what you guys do, in the sense that, you know, we still have all of our biochemistry, our genetics, and then our blocks of cardiology, gastroenterology. Of course, like medicine doesn't change, whether you're at Harvard, you're at KCMC. I think that what would be different though is just like the plethora of resources that you have available to you, because there's just, no matter what you have, what interest you have, whether it's within medicine or healthcare more broadly, I think that you'll find mentors, you'll find, you know, like the resources available to you to become a leader in that field, right? So for me, for example, you know, doing all this global health work in Tanzania, I think that you meet such incredible sort of like global health pioneers, like going back to like Paul Farmer, for example, who was just such a triumphant character in global health, to, you know, people who I've been able to get connected with African institutions like Africa CDC. Like there's professors that just have these global connections. So I think that what the value of Harvard is the connections and the resources that it provides for students.
Definitely. I totally agree in connection.
That's right, yeah.
So what was the most surprising thing which you have seen in Harvard?
Most surprising thing I would say that, you know, I was definitely kind of anticipating the rigorous studies and stuff like that, the hard exams. So obviously that didn't come as much of a surprise, but apart from that, I think what came as a surprise to me was one, how distinct everyone's interests are in medicine out of my classmates, right? So there's me, who's extremely interested in healthcare in sub-Saharan Africa, and then there's other people who will have so much interest in this one particular, you know, like genetic disorder. Another person who's so interested in you know, new surgical techniques and neurosurgery. And then also beyond that, like I think that we have the time and the opportunity to kind of like explore those different interests. And what I mean by that is that even the name of our curriculum at Harvard Medical School is Pathways. And the reason it's called that is that everyone has their own pathway. My pathway is this global health work. Someone else's is their pathway, you know, exploring this interest in neurosurgery. And I think that the school and the administration do a good job of allowing us the opportunity to explore those interests beyond just, you know, perhaps direct clinical medicine, because, you know, our classes will end at 12:30 p.m. each day, and that basically leaves you the whole, you know, evening to explore those other interests. And then even later on, kind of like in our fourth year, you know, you just have so much flexibility to do, whether it's research, start your own kind of project, work on other sorts of like activities beyond that. So I think that what was surprising is, you know, how much more we get to do outside of just our direct, you know, studying of medicine.
That's a very good thing.
That was very insightful.
And it's actually, I will also congratulate the management that it actually allows them to do that. You know,
Correct.
because every student, even us in here, we came as medical doctors, but deep down, if you ask everybody, they'll be like, I want to be a cardiologist, I want to be a neurosurgeon, I want to be an IPH person, like in research wise. So, public health.
Exactly. And I think that especially at an institution like Harvard, actually the goal is for you not to become just a clinician, right? Because you could go to any medical school and become a clinician, right, in the US, right? But in order to become a clinician plus, let's say, a researcher, or clinician plus someone who's going to work in healthcare systems in Africa, a clinician plus a policymaker, it's like, that's what sets Harvard apart. It's what goes beyond just the direct, on top of great clinical training, you know, what resources you have to do beyond that as well. So I think that's actually a goal of theirs is you know, be a physician leader plus something else.
That's the cherry on top.
That's right. Yeah, that's exactly right. I think that everything starts with being a good clinician, but then from there, you know, everyone has their own pathway.
So basically, Harvard equals infinite pathways.
Yeah, I think that the opportunities out there are seemingly endless.
That's how ChatGPT does it for you when you give it like a 50-page article one night before the exam.
Yep.
Put this in 50 words.
That's so funny. I've been in that position.
No way.
Everybody uses ChatGPT.
I don't know how I would have gotten to first year med school without ChatGPT.
Med school, and the word biochemistry still
It still
triggers my PTSD.
Oh yeah.
PTSD
There's a lot.
biochemistry.
You know what's the
Biochemistry
joke is that med school is about learning the Krebs cycle and forgetting it 5-6 times in.
Definitely. So let's shift continents, right? You've done a lot of work in Africa, in
Yeah.
sub-Saharan Africa.
Sure.
So you're like in Tanzania, Uganda, I think Ghana is a good one.
That's right.
A lot of them, I don't know.
Boston.
My geography isn't really gonna walk me
No
through
worries,
the
yeah.
entire
Unless
sentence.
you didn't tell me Ghana is not in Africa,
You
you're
don't
still
know?
good. You're still good. Ghana is in
You
Africa.
know?
I know it's in Africa.
You know.
I knew. There's a player in us. You know.
Okay, so you've done research right here in Moshi.
Mm.
Tell us more about that.
Yeah, so broadly, my research here in Moshi is focused on cardiovascular disease, so and specifically myocardial infarction, so heart attack. So in the U.S., we have all these resources available to treat a heart attack. Like patient comes in, quickly administer aspirin, get an EKG, do a troponin assay, all of these sorts of things. But in more resource limited settings, like in Tanzania, a lot of the resources don't exist. And so, some of the underlying research behind this that we found was that, a lot of heart attacks were missed in emergency departments here in Tanzania, where a patient would come in with chest pain, shortness of breath, and not receive the care, like the workup that would be needed for a heart attack. And so, one of the main research projects we've been focusing on past few years actually is increasing the diagnosis, triage, and early emergency care for patients with heart attacks. And we've over the course of implementing this research, been able to significantly reduce 30-day mortality rates for patients who suffer MI, which is really exciting. And the other project, which is the one I'm working on this summer, is a trial focused on hypertension counseling and treatment on patients living with HIV, right? So these are patients who have well-controlled HIV, who take their antiretroviral drugs, but there's other side effects of those drugs, of the cardiometabolic side effects of those drugs that leave them more susceptible to hypertension and heart disease. So a trial kind of focused on that.
Okay.
That's right.
That's a very interesting thing. You literally just gave us a map of pharmacology, which we just learned in this year.
Yeah.
Now that's my traumatizing part of hypertension.
Hypertension was actually easy. I think it was the antiarrhythmics that got us.
Oh, that stuff is hard. I think that's an art to interpret like an EKG and know all the arrhythmias. It's an art.
Lidocaine thing.
PQRS.
That's right.
PQRS would be the end of me clinically. All right. So
okay, so since you've already told us more about research, what about your publishments? We heard that you published in BMJ, Nature Medicine, and also how more about that?
Yeah, absolutely. So, I would say when I first came to Tanzania, I was able to get connected with some public health leaders kind of in the country to work on more sorts of like health policy, health system strengthening. So sort of research, so beyond just the direct, clinical research that I was more, that I was used to, so I got connected with people like Nduli Kopologwe, and so started working on those sorts of articles. So for example, one article that we published quite a number of years ago it was actually with the Tanzanian Ministry of Health, focused on how do we actually integrate HIV and cardiovascular disease care in Tanzania, what resources would be needed, what investment would be needed. And then from there, it really just started to branch out, where I was able to connect with some health leaders in other countries as well, like in Congo. We published, previously with the city the Nairobi City County government about tobacco control in Kenyan schools. We published with actually the Africa CDC about the Mpox outbreak in last year in 2024. So I think that it all started out sort of domestically here in Tanzania, and then sort of making those connections naturally just became a sort of kind of like international sort of research collaborative that is what I focus on now, that basically that collaborates with these sorts of health leaders to publish articles that are related to health policy in the African continent.
That's so nice. So what advice will you give to our young researchers in Tanzania, also those who are actually already researchers?
Absolutely. I think my biggest advice would be is to find the right mentors. And I think that applies not just in Tanzania, but in any sort of country. I think that people who are already well established in research, have existing publications, have like the infrastructure in place. I think those are good people to connect with. So the example that I just gave, Nduli, has published I think over like 200 articles or something like that. So he's someone that is just an example of a great mentor. And not just him, even people here at KCMC, you know, like the collaborators that we work with, Blandina and Baga, Francis Sakita, these are all great mentors. So I think that the advice I would give is if you're able to connect with these sorts of people who have a research sorts of basis and kind of follow in their footsteps, I think that's the best way to start with research.
That's for all KCMC people who actually are interested in research. And obviously, I should remind my best friend, my general secretary of KCMC, Mr. Eric Matara. That's also
Yeah,
for
he's
you.
great. Yeah,
Yeah,
we've actually
Vincent,
published
yeah.
together just very recently. He's great.
Yeah.
So yeah, that was a very deep insight into like
Sure,
your work in sub-Saharan Africa and some advice to our fellow students.
that's right.
Because I feel like when we talk about medicine in Tanzania, we mean medicine.
That's right. That's right.
If you go to a medical school in Tanzania, you're pretty much 95% of people are like, yeah, I'm gonna
That's
be a
right.
doctor. I'm
That's
gonna treat people who come in, and
Yeah, and I think
that's my life. But
I think it's
Yes.
starting to shift now, you
Yeah.
know, because it's interesting because in the US, it's like, why is Harvard so prestigious, right, of a medical school? And the reason is because of research. It's because of the groundbreaking research that's meant to advance medicine. So I think that, and even like, for example, us medical students, like research is something that's so heavily, it's so emphasized because like, for example, if you're aiming for a competitive specialty like neurosurgery, orthopedic surgery, plastic surgery, the way that you're able to gain admissions to those residency programs is actually through your research. If you have, you know, some set number of articles, if you have recommendations from strong researchers in those fields, that's really what helps you. So I think that just kind of goes to show you is that in the US, you know, there's a huge amount of emphasis on research. And I think that, you know, with you guys, with, you know, KCRI and all this infrastructure that's being developed in research, I think that's where things are heading in the future as well.
yeah,
I mean, in parts of research, our university is actually leading the race in Tanzania
That's
because
awesome.
you go to KCRI and everything.
That's
so,
right.
Yeah. Most of
KCRI is awesome.
most of students from medical students all around Tanzania, when they come there research wise, they have to pass by
Yeah,
KCRI.
yeah. And I think KCRI has also just done a great job of connecting with these abroad institutions. Like my own undergrad, the reason why I came to Tanzania in the first place is Duke, which is the college I went to. Duke has such a long-standing collaboration with KCRI and KCMC. So, and I know they have all sorts of collaborations in Germany and stuff like that. I think that's another thing that KCRI has done that's really great.
definitely. KCRI should be a place we should
You
focus on a little bit.
we should focus on that's actually
Alright.
there in the
Mm.
short
So
list.
funny.
The short list. That's a very long list. All right. So tell us more about one other thing you haven't touched on so far,
Sure.
which I think is quite an achievement. GHSEN Global
Yeah,
Research,
GHSEN Global Research. Yeah.
and you founded this while still a student, I believe.
That's right. That's right.
Tell us more about GHSEN.
Yeah, so I think that GHSEN Global Research is sort of the byproduct of all of what I was mentioning before. All that research that I started to do with these sorts of health leaders in different African countries across Congo, Ethiopia, Tanzania. I think that what I found is that it was something that could be expanded upon by bringing more people in, and also just using it as a mechanism, not only to elevate the sorts of voices of these health leaders who would then have the opportunity to, you know, have their voices heard in academic outlets, but then also get some of my own peers from the US connected with African leaders, get them engaged with you know, African health challenges in a research context. And so what ended up happening is that I took some of that infrastructure that I built over the past, you know, like 2-3 years by, you know, having this network of all these different sorts of health leaders that are working on health challenges in Africa, and I sort of made it into a research network, you know, a nonprofit research network where, you know, students from the US are able to join us and then become connected with African health leaders to publish sorts of articles related to different sorts of topics. So for example, you know, one of actually Eric Mahadara, you know, who's someone you just mentioned, he worked together with me and then Blandina and Baga, and then some of our US-based students who are interested in working with GHSEN Global Research. Together we kind of worked on a paper about PEPFAR, which is the mechanism by which the US government funded HIV care in African countries. We kind of like did an assessment of if that funding ends, what are going to be the effects in Tanzania and more broadly in sub-Saharan Africa. So that's just like an example of a project that we worked on where we really got to see GHSEN Global Research connect U.S. Medical students and researchers with real health leaders that are working on these challenges in Tanzania. And so, we have upwards of 40 projects that are similar to that one that we're working on, and we're really proud of the work that we've been able to do. And I'm very fortunate to have an awesome team that I work with also that makes this all, able to be happening.
It's such a high achievement while you're being a student to lay down a foundation for all the students
That's right.
around the world, but also to be able to connect US and Africa.
Correct. Yeah.
That's a very nice thing.
And I appreciate it. And I think that that's something that really wasn't there before, because even in global health research, I found in the US, it's like a lot of students were working on global health research, but not really connecting with on the ground leaders or medical students in these African countries. And so me having made all these connections by living in Tanzania or just, connecting with these other health leaders in other African countries, I just thought the infrastructure was there where I could connect my peers and, students who reach out to me interested in research with, their African counterparts who are also interested in addressing these challenges.
Definitely something to consider. I mean, me personally, I didn't know that existed
That's right.
until I learned
Till
about
now.
you. Till now, actually. So that's something that's very, very
Sure.
And it's beneficial for both sides,
for both sides.
for the
definitely.
US students and for the African
Absolutely.
students.
Absolutely.
Because whatever it is, it's for the benefit of Africa.
Mhm.
But
That's
it's
right.
research on Africa.
Correct.
Definitely. So let's move on to Afya Vision.
Yeah, sure. We'd love to talk about that.
Yeah, you launched the Afya Vision to help
Correct.
Tanzanians
Correct.
learn English for medical careers. So
That's
let us know more about the Afya Vision.
Sure. So that's something that I realized kind of early on when I came to Tanzania is that, especially at government schools in Tanzania, it's like English proficiency is somewhat of a challenge for a lot of students. And also, to become a doctor, to become a healthcare leader, I mean, English is the global medical language, right? Like global medical resources are written in English, right? And so that serves as somewhat of a barrier for these students to enter medical careers, to become doctors, is that if they don't know English well enough, then that's a challenge. And so, myself and some colleagues through GXN Global Research, we applied for a grant from the US Department of State to sort of like, the purpose of the grant is to promote English language education. And so we kind of like took that opportunity to be like, oh, well, we could do this for Tanzanian students and also teach them medically focused English to kind of bolster their careers as future doctors. And, we were really fortunate to be able to get that grant. So it was about a $10,000 grant, and we've used it to be able to fund 50 students here at a local Kilimanjaro government school. And, we meet Tuesdays and Wednesdays every week, and already, like the students over the past 2 weeks we've implemented the program have shown significant increases in their vocabulary and medically focused English. They've been able to boost their confidence in just speaking English, because I think that's something that sort of like lagged behind. Even having the opportunity to speak with myself and some other, American students who have worked on this project with these students, we've been really excited that these 50 students have been able to bolster their proficiency in English and also just become inspired and really just develop that passion for medicine and going into medical careers later on.
Yeah, that's a very nice thing because, as we've said here, we got here private schools and the public schools,
Correct.
the government schools. So the government schools, a child will learn till grade 7
Okay,
Kiswahili full.
that's right.
So he's learning science in Kiswahili, and then while he comes in Form 1,
That's right.
they want him to like change,
Switch to English.
switch like
To
he
English.
knows the diaphragm name in Kiswahili. He knows the lung name in Kiswahili, and then you start telling him a lung. He's like, what is
What
a
is
lung?
that? Yeah, exactly. And
Yeah.
it's interesting you say that, because that was one of our each of our weeks is broken down into different topics. So last week was organs, different parts of the human body, patient demographics and stuff like that. So that's something that we went over with the kids, like what is mapafu, lungs, right? So
Yeah.
no, it's been really interesting, and we're only 2 weeks in. We have another 6 weeks to go, where we'll go over things like what are the names for non-communicable diseases? How do you say ugonjwa wa moyo in English? How do you say cancer in English, right? So it's been really exciting to be able to implement.
It was exciting for us as well when we went
Yeah.
for the reproductive
That's right.
health
Yeah.
in last year.
That's right.
So we were like told like to give reproductive health to the females there,
Okay.
and then they were like they didn't know English, so I was like, cervical cancer. They were just looking at me,
Yeah,
what is cervical cancer? And then they were like telling me saratani ya shingo ya uzazi. I was like, shingo ya
Shingo ya
uzazi.
uzazi, yeah.
Oh, reproductive neck, that's the
Yeah, I wouldn't have guessed shingo. Yeah, was that? That's interesting.
Yeah, that's the cervix.
Okay.
The
Yeah,
neck
that makes
of
sense.
the
Shingo, the
human
neck of the. Okay, that's interesting.
Sometimes it's
Okay.
weird.
Yeah, and then
Very-
saratani
Yeah.
is cancer.
That's
Like,
right, that's
saratani ya shingo ya uzazi. Like, oh,
Saratani and shingo ya uzazi. It makes sense.
Yeah.
I wouldn't have gotten it immediately though.
yeah,
If only they started medicine in Kiswahili instead of
that
Latin.
would be so hard.
See, that's the thing. It's so
We
difficult,
don't,
right?
it would be simpler, I mean.
I mean, there are other students, like, in
Saratani
Form 1,
ya shingo ya uzazi
they want-
is simple.
But at that point, how do you say things like cardiomyopathy in Swahili? Right?
Yeah.
I mean, like,
There must be a name, but
there's a
it's
limit
so
here,
hard.
right?
Imagine saying that Archimedes principle in Form 1 while you've just learned it in Kiswahili. So you've been told in Kiswahili that the whole
Archimedes
Exactly.
principle.
yeah, it's so hard.
On the topic of difficulty of languages and stuff,
Sure.
since you've already worked on bridging the gap, the language gap that exists between upcoming Tanzanian students and the global medical language that is English.
That's right.
Something about research that a lot of people don't know or think that research is very taxing, it's very difficult. And there's a lot of reading involved, there's a lot of networking involved, and that's something that shuns people away. Like even me personally, I have a belief that research is really difficult. Like you have to invest quite a bit into that. What would
True.
you say to people like that? Like how would they?
I think, well, first of all, I would agree with them. I think that research is difficult. I think learning how to do research is difficult. I think setting up trials is difficult. I think the infrastructure needed to do research, it takes a significant amount of investment. I think all of these things are true. But I think that it's incredibly worthwhile. And I think that, for a student, the advice that I would give them is that even though it is worthwhile, and I think that there's a lot of students who look at research and be like, oh, I hate research. It's boring, right? Like, I've heard this so many times. And my answer for those sorts of students is that you just haven't found the research that's right for you. Because everyone has a sort of like interest. I think that everyone can develop a love for research if they're researching the thing that they're most passionate about. Because even for me, or like earlier on, when I first got introduced to research in college, I hated research at the time. I just thought it was boring. I was doing like lab-based research, pipetting one thing into another, like making molecules. At the time I was like, wow, I really hate research. But then, I met some of my mentors who do research here at KCMC, doing research that I said on cardiovascular disease in Tanzania, and they're working on these like more broader research projects on like how do you look at a health system from a broad level and be like, okay, all these patients with HIV have heart disease, like what do we do on a systems level basis to help these patients, right? Like that's addressing those sorts of problems and using research as a tool to address them. Like that's where I really fell in love with research, and I was like, yeah, as much so as this is an investment and it is hard. I felt like because I loved it so much and it was something that I was passionate about, it's really what kept me going. So I think that's the advice that I would give to students, is that if you're able to find a problem or a research topic that you're passionate about, you similarly can develop that sort of love and drive for doing research.
Yeah, well said, well said. I mean, I'm gonna take you up on that. I mean, you need to.
Sure.
I need a mentor for myself. I
Yeah.
feel like to get into research because
Absolutely.
I've always been someone who favors the path of least resistance.
Yes.
By whatever
Just
you
like,
said,
just like.
so whatever you said, it's actually true. Like when you have the passion for the thing,
Yeah.
then when you actually, even if it's tiring, you'll give your best.
That's right.
Because research is divided. Everything needs a research. Everything can be more
Correct.
encouraged and can be more made better.
That's exactly right.
Yeah, so like I like NCDs, but I don't like HIV. So I'll be like, if you tell me to HIV, I'll be like, it's just boring. But if you tell me about NCDs, I like it.
You're fine.
Exactly.
Attention.
It's a topic that you're interested in.
Yeah, so
everyone
that's,
has different
yeah,
interests.
that's what exactly what I'm going to say.
Absolutely.
On the topic of going deeper into research, right? I've heard some people say that. So there's definitely research journals where you publish your research. There's a few famous ones would be New England Journal of Medicine. I think PubMed is
PubMed is,
more of an access.
Yeah, it's what you use to access medical journals and research literature. Yeah.
So and then there's the same in Africa or such Asian journals as well. So would you say that it's justified to think or to believe that the content published in the non-European or the
This is
African or
interesting. This is
Asian
interesting. Yeah.
articles are less trustworthy, even if
Yeah. You know,
they use the same modalities.
I think that's a great question, and it's something that I think that bias definitely exists. Let me stand back and say that, like, if something is published in an African journal, like there is a bias, I will say, to be like, oh, that's not going to be a reputable study. Like that's not as strong as a paper that would be published, for example, in New England Journal of Medicine. So as much as that bias exists, I don't think that necessarily that's always true, because, like, for example, the Africa CDC recently came out with a new journal, like African Journal of Public Health or something like that, and from what I've seen, like, it seems like they publish very reputable studies that are peer reviewed and everything of that sort. So I think that it's difficult to make those like broad sweeping generalizations that all non-US and non-European journals are all non-reputable. I think that what makes a journal reputable is that you have like a rigorous peer review process. You have people who are actually like experts reviewing your research, and I think that so long as that's in place, as it is, to my knowledge, for like a journal like African Journal of Public Health, or even my mentor Nduli is starting his own journal with East Central Southern African Health Community, and I have no doubt that's going to be a reputable journal. I think that so long as those frameworks are in place for journals, like I don't see why you would not give value to sort of like studies that are published, in an African journal. That being said, I think that the reason why things like New England Journal of Medicine, Nature, BMJ, these journals get such a good reputation is that it's just been years, and they've just had so much experience publishing high quality papers, high quality studies, and things of that sort. But I think that the direction that we're going in, my hope would be that there's more opportunities to publish in African journals and still have that sort of I guess spotlight shine on your research that this is a reputable study.
Definitely. So
Definitely.
we have something to look forward to, as
Yeah.
and
It's a very interesting
perhaps
question,
contribute
yeah.
something to our journals.
Yeah.
Yeah. So let's move on to the fire round and fun.
Okay, let's do it.
Stop
Let's do
doing
it.
it like that, please, man.
Let's do it.
All right.
Okay.
So the KCMC quick fire round is a better name.
Let's do
Let's
it.
begin. Question 1. You take it.
Okay.
Mhm.
So Harvard or Moshi street food?
Moshi.
Moshi.
For sure.
I feel like
For
he's
sure.
lying real.
Is
No,
it that
for
I
I
sure.
feel like he's lying
Okay,
real.
what kind of Moshi street food do you like?
Street food is in like snacks, or like things that I can buy like over like at a restaurant, for example, on the street.
Street
Like, for example, like chips my eye, like pilau, that sort of stuff. Yeah, 100% I prefer Moshi.
Chips my eye.
Chips my eye.
100%.
Yeah, he's not lying.
Okay,
He's not lying.
let's
That's
go.
fine. Okay, favorite Swahili word.
Oh, that's a word. Kizungu zungu.
That's a really good one.
Okay, let's
One medical food you can't live without.
go. Not medical
Oh,
food. man.
one
This is
medical
medical
tool.
food.
One medical tool you can't live without.
Sure, an EKG.
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 You can't live without. Yeah, he's actually no pointing to his own.
And if you gave us an EKG, we'd be like,
No,
what better off without this? What is this?
I don't want to, people to
I-
ask me
I-
questions which you can't.
What's this PQRS for you? Alright. Dream dinner guest, dead or alive?
Okay.
Make it easy, we're both alive.
That's so funny. Paul Farmer.
Paul Farmer. Right. You can have one more.
Let's see, who would I be with? I think Elon Musk.
You know what, man? Let's make him look bad when we edit this. I gave him 2 chances, not one of us made the cut. It's very sad. Anyway,
That's so funny.
Elon Musk is rich. What's your net worth?
huh? My net worth is that I have.
Elon Musk can sponsor his
Uh-huh.
research.
You know, it's his birthday today too, funny enough. I just saw online.
Are you a Tesla man?
I like Teslas. I think they're cool. Are you?
No.
You don't have just like
If it doesn't rev, it doesn't live.
your guilty pleasure when you're stressed.
Ice cream.
Ice
Ice
cream.
Yes.
Flavor?
I like mint chocolate chip. Do you guys have that here? Mint chocolate chip ice cream?
Very
No.
I don't know.
Okay.
We need to go Vivas and do our.
No, it's not there.
It's not there. He's an ice cream foodie as well.
Ice cream. Ice cream is amazing. Alright. Bonus question.
Bonus question. What was your most embarrassing moment in the hospital or field?
In the hospital?
Or field. Well, I mean,
And maybe we should break that down into two parts.
okay,
Hospital.
hospital. Let's start with hospital.
Okay. Okay, this is when I was a kid, if that counts.
It does, it does.
I remember that I was in the hospital. My grandma was sick at the time, and I remember I walked out of her bedroom and there was like a small little puddle of water, and I slipped on. And I'm saying like feet in the air, slipped on. This was in Pakistan, when I was a kid. I'm saying like feet in the air. And it's funny that that my grandma was in the hospital sick. And I remember after I fell, all these doctors are coming rushing at me to come help me. So I don't know, it's just something as soon as you hit that embarrassing moment in the hospital, for some reason there must just be trauma behind you. 'Cause I remember that.
You're like, why is everybody coming?
Yeah, everyone's rushing at me like.
What did I do? What did I
What did I
do?
do? What did I do?
Alright.
Okay, in field.
In field. I'll give you this other example. Not necessarily in kind of like a clinical setting, but when I worked in a research lab, like I said, I used to work in kind of like like chemistry sort of research. I had this needle, right, and that's how we kind of like inject chemicals one into another. Like we use a needle to kind of like and then inject it into like say there's like a round bottom flask, right? And this was just me being stupid also, that I went and I withdrew some like straight up poison, like benzyl bromide or something like that. And I go to recap the needle, which you're not supposed to do, and I inject myself with this like poisonous like substance, and I start freaking out. Like I had never had like a panic attack up until that moment in my life, but it genuinely felt like the walls were closing in on me. And it's like I was just so lucky that my professor was in the room, so I started screaming his name, and like I'm freaking out. Like I'm genuinely convinced I'm going to die.
How I feel like when I'm around people with Hep B with no vaccination.
Yeah. Have a needle of Hep B. But long story short, I ended up being fine. I just had like
Yeah,
a severe
we
panic,
have an evidence.
Exactly. Yeah,
You are here, that's why
I
you are
survived the incident.
You know what? I just realized why he hated that lab thing he was saying in research.
Yep.
He said he hated research because of the lab.
Actually,
so
it
much
is true. I mean, it
He's traumatized due to that event. Well, for me, in the field, the most embarrassing moment, you start with a questionnaire, you ask the person, what's your age? And then they tell you, I'm 25 years old. What's your birthday? They tell me, 26 April 1980. And I was like, how's 1980 25 years old?
For them, it's
Imagine that's the
2006.
first question you are starting.
That's so funny.
And then you're like, with the other question, will this person tell me the truth?
That's hilarious.
And then like, okay, let's go with it.
Yeah, that happened.
Okay.
Okay, what's your wildest dream for African healthcare in the next 10 years?
Yeah, I actually love that question. What I would really like to see is someone who's spent so much time in Tanzania and has this like cultural connection to Tanzania, is that I would love for Tanzania to become sort of like almost like a medical tourism hub for not just East Africa, but also for like tourists and stuff like that. Like, and that's something that is my personal dream, is that we can build a private sector, healthcare systems in Tanzania to an extent that Kenyans, Rwandans, people from Burundi, like all these different countries come to Tanzania to seek their medical care, because it's the best regionally, like that would be a dream of mine.
He's thinking so much for us. That's a very good thing. You should think the same thing for us as well.
I do, man.
You do?
Yeah.
I do as well.
I know you want to go to the US.
No. I mean, yeah.
You see that? You see that?
Who doesn't want to go to Harvard? Okay, you're telling me if you get an appointment letter of Harvard, you say no.
Yeah, would you go?
I'll just leave it. I want to stay in KCMC and KCRI. I won't go to
Bro,
Harvard.
I won't leave you. Bro. Don't.
That's not living.
You guys can go together.
We can go together.
You can be the Mike Ross of the medical world. Yeah, you know who Mike Ross is.
Microsis.
Mike Ross.
No, what is that?
No, okay, have you watched the series called Suits?
I've watched like the first like 6-7 episodes.
Yeah, Mike Ross is the guy who lies about getting a degree from Harvard.
Oh, the main guy.
The
Yeah.
main guy,
I know exactly what you're talking about.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
That's right. No, but later on in the series, it ends up actually someone had hacked into the system, so it actually appears
He
like a
hacked
real
into the
Harvard
system.
alumni. Yeah.
Congratulations, Ali. You got the first
I-
of our
I-
guests
I-
in
I
our
was-
podcast who knows movies.
Uh-huh.
That's
Because
so
the all
funny.
previous ones.
No, I know what you're talking about. Suits. Yeah. That's a
Yeah.
good show.
I was considering Harvard, man, and then I told my dad like,
Mhm.
hey man, And then I showed him like the fee structure and he's like,
No,
yeah, that's not yeah, that's not
That's
happening
why you
today.
should learn how to
This is not
how
happening
to
today.
find sponsors.
How
for
to
yourself.
find sponsors.
That's something we should learn from Faraan.
Please give me money. We publish research.
Give me money and I'll always keep you in my all documents that you sponsored me.
No wait, we'll take tips from Faraan off the camera.
Off the camera. It's only for us.
More than welcome.
And we'll put it behind a paywall. Okay, I mean, this has been a really deep, foundation building podcast into the future of research and how it's possible to do pretty much what you put your mind at.
That's right. No, I
Right.
absolutely true.
So,
Determination is very important.
yeah, reminds me of John Wick.
Killing
Man
someone with a pen.
A man of a pencil.
Oh, it was a
A
pencil.
man of power. Let us not say that. Okay,
Thanks
so
Faraan for
Yeah.
your work.
Sure, sure.
And to our all listeners, please listen this. I know you're a med student, but you, as Farhan said, med student being in the medicine school doesn't mean that you just need to be a medical technician or clinician. You can also do big, and only when you have determination and you have strong share.
thank you so much for tuning in, all our listeners, viewers. Hopefully, we went international this time.
We'll go international.
Yes.
We'll send
Thank you so much.
WhatsApp.
Don't forget to drop a like, a subscribe, and a comment, of course.
Yeah.
Thank
The
you
good
so
ones,
much.
the bad ones, send us private.
Yeah, that would be good. I think.
Okay.